Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. أنا عندي privilege إن open session improving water productivity and practice. شكرا طبعا على حضوركم، ونأمل إن احنا خلال الساعة ونص اللي جايين نتكلم مع بعض على استراتيجية إدارة المياه وربطها بالسياسات المختلفة. نبص كمان على والفرص اللي بتواجه صناع القرار في مصر والوزارات المختلفة على إدارة الموارد المائية. وكمان هيبقى معانا حوار في مجموعات منفصلة خلال السيشن على الاستراتيجيات اللي موجودة في التنمية الزراعية وإدارة المياه. شكرا على تواجدكم معنا، وأأمل أن انتوا contribute للدiscussion وتحطوا your input خلال الدiscussion. Thanks for your time in advance, and now I hand it over to Domiti Valley from FAO.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the organizer for inviting us to participate in this interesting session. And so I've been asked to replace, the discussion will be mainly on Egypt, but to replace it in a larger framework of the Near East and North Africa region. So as you know, the countries of the NENA region are facing a progressive and acceleration of water scarcity, which is the difference between the demand and the available resources. This is visible if you look at the level of water stress that is illustrated by the SDG indicator 6.4.2, that is called the indicator defined as the level of water stress, freshwater withdrawal as a proportion of the percentage of available resources. And you see that the Near East and North African region are all of them above the 50% level of water stress, and many of them are reaching the 100 and even above, particularly those countries that are depending on fossil waters. This increase is due to on one side is the demographic growth and the food security and food procurement are increasing the demand. On the other side, you have a combination of climate change impact and upstream management of transboundary water resources that are decreasing the supply. So all these countries are now facing a great dilemma that is how do you implement the 2030 agenda and find the sustainable development, looking at social, economic, and environmental dimensions, while you have climate change that just anticipate the reduction of the rains, an increase of the droughts, a large share of the water resources that are transboundary, so that suggests of, there is no full control on the downstream countries. You have a reduction of the GDP and a reduction of the share of agriculture, in particular in that GDP, and a fast demographic growth and water quality that is continuously being degraded. So to counteract all this imbalance between supply and demand, all the countries see that there is a need to think of how to reallocate the resources. The League of Arab States and FAO are supporting a high-level committee to reflect on how to just decide on long-term to inform water allocation. And knowing that agriculture is a larger water consumer, you just need to reduce its allocation. And
just
also,
1 second. Just 1 second.
Yes.
There is a problem.
Okay.
Practice session.
Sorry?
It's a practice session, so I'm going to turn it to just 1 second.
Okay.
The host.
Apparently, we have some technical issues.
Yes, yes. Just 1 second, please.
Okay, yeah.
Just 1 second.
As a session
Yes,
coordinator,
it was like a practice session, so I'm sorry this.
Okay.
Okay, so. So do we need to start again, or we can start from where I left it?
Yes, please.
Mona, Mona, do we need to start all over again?
Yes,
the whole session?
Yes.
Okay, because the attendees have not heard a single word.
Yes, it was a practice.
Okay, and can the participants now hear us?
I would ask them to write on the question answer, please.
Can you hear us? I'll type it to the attendees. Yep. Okay, Ahmad.
Yes,
thanks.
they can hear you now.
Okay, so okay, we have a small delay. We try to catch it up because I think we're not allowed to have extra time. Mona, is that okay, or should we stick to the original time plan? Okay.
That's all right. The session won't end.
Okay, so we can still. We have 90 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Just
good.
The session. Thank you so much.
So, Amgad, I would like to ask you to formally open this session with an opening statement. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. معاكم دكتور أمجد المهدي مدير الإقليمي للمعهد الدولي لإدارة المياه. بتشرف طبعا بافتتاح هذه الندوة، وأبتدي كلامي بأشكركم على الحضور، وأشكركم على المشاركة ل Improving Water Productivity in Practice Session. خلال الساعة ونص اللي جايين هنتشاور مع بعض على استراتيجيات إدارة الموارد المائية وربطها بالسياسات المختلفة. هنبص كمان على الفرص والتحديات اللي بتقابل صانع القرار والوزارات المختلفة في إدارة الموارد المائية داخل مصر. كمان هيبقى في مجموعات ديسكشن منفصلة حول الاستراتيجيات وملائمتها للسياسات الحالية. فأتمنى أن أنتم تدخلوا معنا وتتفاعلوا معنا خلال الساعة ونص اللي جايين. وأخيرا شكرا لحضوركم معنا. With that, I would like to hand it over to Domiti Valley from FAO to give another remark.
Thank you very much. So I'm very pleased to be today with you. So as Dr. Hamgad indicated, I'm Domiti Valley. I'm working for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the regional office based in Cairo, Egypt. And I'm very pleased to try to enlarge the scope of the meeting that will be focused on Egypt, but we wanted to just set the scene for Egypt in the broader MENA region. So what is important is to see that all the countries of the Near East and North Africa region are facing a progressive and accelerated escalation of the water scarcity, defined putting in relation the demands with the available resources. This is very visible if you look at indicators under the Sustainable Development Agenda 6.4.2, that is the level of water stress that is defined on the freshwater withdrawn as a proportion of the available freshwater resources. That shows clearly that most of the countries in the region are above the 50%, so the stress level, and many of them are very close to 100, and some of them above the 100, particularly those depending on fossil waters, so with very limited freshwater resources. And we know that all this increase is based due to different drivers. One that is related to the demographic growth and food security that are increasing the demand. And on the other side, you do have climate change impact and the upstream management of transboundary water resources that are decreasing the supply. So the countries in the region are facing a dilemma on how to just answer to the sustainable development goals that they assign and they commit to just have a balanced development with sustainable, considering economy, social and environmental dimension in an equitable way. but also having all the cards playing against. So I refer to climate change, where you have a reduction in the quantity of rains, you have an increase in the percentage of droughts, 20 to 60% that is anticipated, a large share of the water resources that are transboundaries, and where you have all countries that are trying to just decrease their vulnerability to drought and uncertainty. You have a GDP reduction overall in the region, demographic growth that is fast, and urbanization, and the water quality that are also degrading. So this means that you degrade also the available resources. So to counteract this imbalance between supply and demand, there is a tendency in most of the country to try to reallocate water from agriculture, that has been for a long time the largest water consumer sector, while modestly contributing to the GDP of most of the country today. And you have tangible examples that are Jordan, for example, and Lebanon, where agriculture is already around 50% to 65% of national water use, respectively. Egypt is planning to reduce also the agricultural water allocation to 70% in the 2030. And you can see that other countries are facing similar constraint allocation, and they just plan to reallocate some of the resources that traditionally was for agriculture and irrigation. But it's a difficult challenge, because agriculture has a strategic relevance in securing food while sustaining rural employment and protecting also soil and biodiversity in many cases. So it's evident that water has to be given and its multiple purposes, and you need to optimize those purposes. And it's interesting also to note that the League of Arab States with FAO is supporting a process with a high-level committee to prepare guidelines on water allocation. So you see that in the region, there is really a focus on just seeing how we just manage and add more to each drop of water. So agriculture is in particular expected to advance towards producing much more with much less water. So significantly, we need to increase water productivity without decreasing the land productivity, nor degrading environmental dimensions. So, and the social aspect of agriculture. So it's a very interesting but difficult topic to address in most countries. But water quality, water productivity must be evaluated not only in a biophysical sense, but also in economic terms. There is a large variability in both expression of water productivity between countries and within countries. The project led by FAO and funded by Sweden, called Implementing the 2030 Agenda for Efficiency, Productivity and Sustainability in the NENA region, is evaluating the baseline of both this water productivity and assessing the gap of their attainable potential. You do have also a number of efforts using, for example, remote sensing to just estimate what is the reality, of this water productivity. So you can find more details on the web-based platform, the Vapor platform that is on the FAO website. Analyzing the causes of these gaps allows to identify the possible interventions in terms of investment, management practices, and capacity development that could be targeted by policymakers. Associated a business model of cost-benefit, inclusive social, gender, economic, and environmental dimensions will indicate the most feasible pathway and the time horizon to achieve target results. And I believe that the session today will just enable us to explore what are the possible options, looking at a set of indicators that will help us see different dimensions. And I would just like to conclude on saying that nevertheless, increasing water productivity, that will be our aim, our discussion today, per se carry over the risk of generating rebound effects that can induce an increase in water consumption, similarly to what irrigation efficiency can do. Therefore, it's very important to think of fixing a cap or limit to water consumption in parallel to water productivity increase. This is why it's very important that a long program of modernization of irrigation and improvement of water productivity, you just get water accounting to accompany your processes. So I'd like to conclude here and just invite you to just get more details on Egypt policy dimension for water productivity.
Thank you, Domitil, for these very interesting and relevant words. Water productivity and more crop per drop is an important aspect, but obviously, as you explained, there are many more policy objectives to look after. Economy is one, environment may be another. And I think, Petra Helliges, I would like to give the floor to you now to further introduce the WaterPIP project and what we will be doing in this session. So Petra, please take it away.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Amgad, for opening, and Domitil for showing this broader perspective. Of course, today we will only talk about Egypt, but I think the framework we have developed is very useful also in the rest of the region. Well, welcome to this workshop on agricultural development strategies in Egypt and the impact on policy objectives. My name is Petra Helliges. I'm a professor in water resources management and I work at the Wageningen University. Maybe we can share my PowerPoint as well. This workshop is organized by the Water Productivity in Practice project in close collaboration with the International Water Management Institute, especially the MENA office.
Mona, can you, because I cannot share my screen, can you maybe make me a presenter again? Sorry, Petra, just to...
That's okay.
Yeah.
There it is. I think we can go to the second slide already. Because the workshop is organized by the Water Productivity in Practice project in close collaboration with the International Water Management Institute and the Food and Agriculture Organization, both the regional offices. The WaterPIP project is supported by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we have project partners, so not only Wageningen University, but also IHE Delft, as well as Meta and eLeaf. The WaterPIP project aims to facilitate water productivity improvements by assessing water productivity variability and by supporting national policy, among others, through the FAO-based WaPo database. And it's an open access portal with remotely sensed derived data on biomass production as well as evapotranspiration for Africa and the Near East at 3 levels of resolution, the 250 meter, the 100 meter and the 30 meter. So it's open access and you find the link here and it's worth, I think, to visit the portal. Next slide, please. Okay, the objectives of this workshop are, first of all, to learn about the different agriculture development strategies and how they contribute to various policy objectives in Egypt, but also to identify the various trade-offs among policy objectives. Domitil mentioned already that it would be nice to increase water productivity as well as land productivity, but maybe there are trade-offs among both, which I will show in a minute. And once we have identified these trade-offs, we will do a dialogue on the different development strategies. Within the project, we have developed an assessment framework to get a better understanding of water productivity, but also on the other indicators, like what do certain development strategies mean for employment, for the environment, as well as for food security. Yes, please. Well, this is the outline of the workshop. It will be a very interactive workshop, so your input will also be included in the policy brief later on. And we have made it interactive by, you can use your mobile phone. And on your mobile phone, if you enter www.menti.com, you can score different strategies. So please open your mobile phone and go to www.menti.com and enter the code 7346584. And we will ask you to do a scoring later on. We will ask you to score on an ideal policy, but also on different development strategies for Egypt, which will be presented in a minute by my colleague Maria. And after this scoring, can we go back? One slide back. After the scoring, we will do a dialogue on the scores, and we go out in breakout sessions. We have a breakout session, so we have 5 different groups to discuss the scoring. And after that, we will report back and do a wrap up, and I will inform you about the next steps in the projects, how your input will be used. So that's basically the setup of the session. Let me then first explain the various criteria. Like I said, crop water productivity is just one indicator, and that can be defined as yield or biomass per cubic meter of water consumed. And of course, a certain development strategy can score very low on that particular indicator or very high. When you think the development strategy scores low, then you score a 1. If you think that particular development strategy scores high on the crop water productivity, you score a 5. And the same holds for land productivity, which is defined in terms of yield or biomass per unit of hectare. And again, you can score low if you think the development strategy doesn't contribute a lot to land productivity, and a 5 if it scores high. A third indicator is economic water productivity, and that's not defined in terms of kilograms per cubic meter, but it's defined in terms of dollars per cubic meter of water consumed. A fourth indicator we will score on is food security, and that's interpreted here as access for all people at all times to sufficient food. Again, a low is a 1 and a high is a 5. The fifth one is food self-sufficiency, and that's defined here as the ability to meet food needs from own production. So to what extent is a country food self-sufficient in to meet their own food needs? A fifth one is employment. Will a certain development strategy generate new jobs? Will it contribute to employment generation? And finally, to what extent will the development strategy have a responsible interaction with the environment? So these are the 7 indicators which we will ask you to score 2 different development strategies on. And we have developed an assessment framework to do so, which includes these 7 indicators. And what is the beauty of it is that it will reveal the trade-offs among the various indicators of these different development strategies. And of course, these are relative scores because we compare 2 different development strategies. So one does better than the other, so then you score higher for that particular one. And after the scoring, we will open the floor to reveal the arguments. Why have we scored these development strategies as such? Yes, next slide, please. It's important, I think, to realize that there is a linear relationship between biomass produced and water transpired, which is defined as water productivity here. And that there is a concave relationship between yield and water consumed. And what's interesting to note in the right-hand side production function is that in case you maximize land productivity, you do not maximize water productivity. So if you try to increase water productivity, maybe that comes at the cost of land productivity. And we will also ask you to score the different development strategies with that in the back of your mind, that there is a difference between water productivity and land productivity. And if you maximize one, that can come at the cost of the other. And we're interested in these kind of trade-offs in our assessment framework. Yes, next please. Okay, I would like to ask you now to open your Menti.com meter. and enter the code 7346584. Let me do that as well. And then I would like to ask you, how would you assess an ideal policy for productive water use on these 7 indicators? So please open your Mentimeter. Did we manage to enter and to score? Let's see, whether we get some results already? Yes, oh, good. Okay, thank you all for scoring. It's still changing, but we can see some trends already. Indeed, in an ideal policy for productive water use, you would expect indeed a high score on biophysical water productivity as well as on economic water productivity. Yeah? And it looks like that's at the cost of land productivity. Yeah? That's a logical trade-off because I just explained to you that maximizing water productivity can come at the cost of land productivity. It will also contribute to food security, yeah? But at the cost of food self-sufficiency, which makes sense. That could be the case. And it scores high on environmental sustainability. Okay. So we expect that it is possible to do that in a responsible manner, eh? Because it scores high. Okay, I think now that we understand how the Mentimeter works, I would like to hand over the floor to Maria, my colleague from Wageningen University, which will introduce you to the 2 development strategies for Egypt. Eh? And these are hypothetical examples, just to show how the assessment framework works. So Maria, I would like to hand over the floor to you. Thank you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Maria.
I cannot hear Maria.
Maria, can you please wait? You are muted, so we cannot hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you now. So just try to share the presentation one more time. And then you can pick it up after the ideal policy that Petra just explained and the participants scored. Okay, take it away, Maria.
Yeah, thank you very much, and sorry for this confusion, but yeah, we are good to go, I think, now. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the water and agricultural situation in Egypt. As Domitil already mentioned, Egypt is in the delta of the Nile River Basin, and water scarcity is increasing, causing more competition for water users inside Egypt, also to for the water. And we know that agriculture is the main user, the main water user, using around 80% of the country's water resources. And through vapor analysis, we realized also that there is an increase of the annual water consumption, the ET values, from 2009 to 2019, as you can see in the graph. What is interesting to also point out is that normally when you have increases in precipitation, you would expect also increases in ET values, but it seems that for Egypt, precipitation increases do not, they are not responsible for the higher increases that we see in evapotranspiration. However, we should point that in this analysis, we didn't consider how potentially increased precipitation in further upstream countries might have affected the evapotranspiration in Egypt. In order to identify the, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if you can see the whole thing, but anyway, in order to identify the main agricultural strategies in Egypt, we conducted a policy review of water and agricultural policies that are evident in Egypt. And what we came across is some policy targets. Firstly, Egypt wants to maximize the benefits that are derived from water in all the economic sectors, and specifically for agriculture, there is a need for rationalizing its water use, as also Domitil was mentioning before. Another target that we saw is that there are specific targets for self-sufficiency in wheat, maize, and sugar. There was also some policies about in order to promote low water consuming crops and virtual water trade, as well as exports. And finally, we also saw a trend of expanding to new agricultural areas. After this review that we discussed also with local experts, we identified two main strategies, the vertical expansion strategy and the horizontal expansion strategy. With the vertical expansion strategy, we refer to increases in production in already existing lands, that is mostly for staple crops that they go to the domestic market and the local population. While for the horizontal expansion strategy, we mainly refer to expansion in new areas, in new agricultural lands, with the cultivation of high value crops for the export market. In order to further identify these two strategies and make sure that they indeed appear in the context of Egypt, we continued with a vapor analysis. And as you can see in this graph, this figure, we see that between 2009 and 2019, there is horizontal expansion, especially in the Western Nile Delta, as you can see. So this is one example of an area that horizontal expansion is taking place in Egypt. Another area that we see this horizontal expansion strategy is the area of OENAT. And this is based on an analysis that was done under the WaterPIP project. And as you see in the right images, the area has greatly developed between 2009 and 2020. Regarding the vertical expansion strategy, for the vapor analysis, we selected an area in the already traditionally agricultural area in the Nile Delta. And we saw how much the ET changed over the years between 2009 and 2019. As you can see in the right figure, again, ET is increasing while precipitation remains relatively stable. So indeed, we can also see that there is an agricultural intensification in terms of water consumption in this area. So now that I have introduced you about these two different strategies, the horizontal and the vertical expansion strategy, I would like to invite you to go again to Mentimeter and use the code and score and assess the strategies. Let me briefly continue to the next slide in Mentimeter. Now you should be able to check it in your phones, and this question will appear. How would you assess the horizontal expansion strategy against the following indicators? Just to also mention that we also are interested in how these two strategies relate to each other. So maybe it's good to have in mind while you score them that how both horizontal and vertical expansion strategy scoring biophysical water productivity or all the other indicators. I saw it. Can you still hear me? Because
yeah, we can still hear you.
okay. So yes, it's good that you take notice of how horizontal expansion strategy is relating with vertical expansion strategy for each indicator, so that we also have a relative scoring of the two strategies. And while you are on your Mentimeter thinking about how to score these two strategies, I will briefly go through again what we mean by horizontal expansion strategy. So horizontal expansion strategy refers to expansion of agricultural lands to new areas with high value crops that are mostly for export markets. And then what we ask you to do is to think of how this horizontal expansion strategy assess against the indicator of physical water productivity, which is the yield per cubic meter of water consumed, the land productivity, yield per hectare, per unit of area, the economic water productivity, so the economic value per water consumed, food security, which refers to access of all people at all times to food, but also with a sense of economic or purchasing power of people. So food security refers the higher the economic power of people, the higher their food security is. And this is what differentiates this indicator from food self-sufficiency indicator, which this indicator refers to the ability of a country to meet its own food needs. Then the next indicator is the employment, the number of jobs that are generated by agriculture. And lastly, the environmental sustainability indicator, which refers to responsible interaction with the environment. Yeah, and I think I will check your results. Oh, it seems so. We see already some trade-offs, and please continue to answer this question, and we have this dynamic view of how different answers can change the scoring. We already see again a trade-off between the biophysical water productivity and land productivity, environmental sustainability. also we see that biophysical water productivity is at around the same level as economic water productivity. And I think now I want to invite the last participants to please fill this question, and then we will further discuss these trade-offs in the breakout rooms. And now I can continue with the next question about. No. We will first score also the vertical expansion strategy, and then we will go to the breakout rooms. So I will go to the next slide here. So again, I would like to invite you to now assess the vertical expansion strategy. And again, explaining a bit what we mean by this is vertical expansion strategy focuses on raising production in existing lands. And it's mostly about staple crops that are made for a domestic market. And again, the indicators, the biophysical water productivity, the land productivity, the economic water productivity, so how much economic value is obtained from the water that is consumed. The indicators related to food security, and food self-sufficiency, with their difference to be that food security refers to access to food, which can be met through economic power, while food security is about food self-sufficiency, refers to the production of own food needs from a country. Then we have employment and the number of jobs that are created, and finally the environmental sustainability indicator. And I will now go to Mentimeter. So we already have 10 answers. And then, so again, we see that vertical expansion strategy can have a high biophysical scores, high in biophysical water productivity. We will discuss further this in shortly in what we thought about the assessment of these two strategies. And we see that vertical expansion strategy is not scoring or assessing so high in terms of employment, which I think it makes sense, since the same number of people will still work in the already existing areas. And we also see that economic water productivity is relatively, maybe not low, but everything we will assess it better when we have the results also from horizontal expansion strategy. And I think now that we have these scores, I will show you what we thought of, how we assessed the two strategies, and how we used how we interpret the team we interpreted the two strategies. So as Petra was mentioning before, biophysical water vertical expansion strategy aims to maximize land production, and this cannot go together with maximizing water productivity. So what we assessed in the framework, as you can see, is that vertical expansion strategy has a higher land productivity compared to horizontal expansion strategy. But when it comes to biophysical water productivity, horizontal expansion strategy scores higher than vertical expansion strategy. Then regarding the aspect of the indicator of economic water productivity, since horizontal expansion strategy focuses mostly on export crops, we consider that the economic benefits derived from this strategy are much higher than those from vertical expansion strategy, which is mostly focused on staple crops. And this is also evident in the food security indicator. Since we have more economic power, food security can be met in a horizontal expansion strategy, while in the vertical expansion strategy, food security is at the same level as it is of food self-sufficiency. So, but horizontal expansion strategy, it scores less on food self-sufficiency, since all the domestic production is not necessarily all, but domestic production is also for exports, and this decreases the food self-sufficiency indicator. Then when we go to the employment indicator, we see, as it was also clear from your scoring, that horizontal expansion strategy has to offer more opportunities as new areas are developed, and thus more people can obtain work. And finally, regarding the environmental sustainability indicator, horizontal expansion strategy, we consider that it creates an extra demand for water, and this might have negative effects in terms of surface and groundwater. And now that we have laid out all these strategies, how they interact, our interpretations of them, and we also have your scoring, I will give the floor to Chris there was a question. I'm just gonna continue and get to it in a second. So we're gonna go to the breakout rooms, and I will send to the moderators the presentation and the results from Mentimeter, and then each breakout room can discuss more in detail the trade-offs that appear from these different scorings that the participants that you did. So I will give the floor to Chris and stop sharing now my screen.
Yeah, thank you, Maria, for this very informative presentation where you talked us through the different policy priorities Egypt has, and also main strategies for agricultural development, namely horizontal expansion and vertical expansion. And I think the scoring was already very insightful, that we saw how all of you are rating these development strategies in a different way. And now I think we come to the most exciting part of this session. Well, maybe this was already very exciting, but now we will give you the opportunity to discuss together with the panel moderators a set of questions, and basically try to find answers with each other. To what extent do you agree on the strategies? Do you think the strategies are still fit for the current situation in Egypt, or should they change? And perhaps you also have some feedback or constructive criticism on the methodology that we just showed you. So for this purpose, we created separate breakout rooms. And now we just have to find out how to get you all in the breakout sessions. Mona or Mohammed, I hope you can help, because I see we are all now in this separate session. We just need to get the participants in there, and I would like to ask everybody to...
We're going to share the link in a minute, the link to the meeting, so you can have your breakout session. Just 1 minute.
Okay. So we will have the breakout session in 1 minute. Just some background preparations still going on. The breakout session will last for about 30 minutes. So at 5 minutes past 4, we will terminate the breakout session, and then we come back for the wrap up. And we will have some discussion material also present with you. Maybe in the meantime, I will already share with you the main questions that we like to discuss with you. So you can see my screen. Just maximize the questions a bit. So these are the questions to maybe you can write them down already on paper that we want you to discuss about. The first question is, how do you think that the horizontal and vertical expansion strategies meet the development priorities of Egypt? The second question is, what kind of trade-offs are you observing between the two strategies? The third strategy is compared to an ideal policy. So remember that that was what you have been thinking about at the very start of this presentation, asked by Professor Petra Hellegers. Do you think that the current balance of a vertical and horizontal expansion strategies, that this balance is good? Or maybe should it change? Should Egypt have more vertical expansion or more horizontal, or maybe another strategy that we have not looked at yet? Question number 4 is looking into the existing policies. Do you think that they are fit in the present situation, or should the policies change a bit? And the last question is the framework that you have been scoring the strategies with has different indicators for land, water, economy, agriculture, and environment. And do you think that this framework with 7 indicators that is useful to assess different development strategies? So as you see, there are quite some questions to discuss in the breakout room. I hope Mona has, in the meantime, prepared the breakout rooms that we can quickly start. And as you are all aware, we are, we are trying to work with the material that we have and try to be, to improvise to get this session as interactive as possible. Mona, can you lead us to the breakout sessions?
The link is on the chat box. Please join the meeting.
Okay, I'm going to quit sharing my screen.
You don't see a
It has been
link, eh?
sent to all the attendees.
Mona, where can we see it? In the chat, I am not seeing a link.
Yeah, we can't see any link.
Please, if the attendees can see the link, would you raise your hand?
No, it seems it's not working. We can't see it.
Gaber sees it. So we have the first one. Who can? Gaber Abdelatif.
Okay.
Maybe the participants can see it, but the moderators can't. Would it be possible, Mona?
Just 1 second.
Okay, we just wait another second. Are there maybe in the meantime participants? Maybe you already have some questions. I mean, we obviously have a little bit of time. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have questions, Chris, in the chat.
Okay.
Maybe you can address them.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, Amgad, I see now that we also have Gaber is resharing the post. Can we click on it? Yes. Okay. Okay. I think.
Just the attendees can see it. The
Yeah.
panelists already joined the meeting.
Okay. Okay. Oh, very good. Oh. Okay. So what are we, Mona? We should not click. Okay. Need to. Okay.
Please open the mic on just on the event or the meeting, please.
Okay, and I think we now automatically go to the breakout session. Are the participants assigned now automatically? Mona, can you give us a little bit of a guideline how to get the breakout session started? Because we have your second session. But
I'm just waiting for all that to go to this link to join the meeting. There's only 15.
Okay, so please, all participants, could you please click on the link that Gaber Abdelatif just shared in the chat and join this new meeting. This is a new meeting that we specifically need for the breakout session. So please click on the link in the chat. And then you need to click again to join the meeting. Are we getting everybody now in the...
We're having 20 attendees now.
Okay. Does anyone have difficulties clicking on the link of Gaber Abdelatif? Because we still we are with more than 50 participants. So I'd like to remind you the discussion continues when you click on this link shared by Amgad El Mahdi in the chat. So I'd like to ask everybody to click on the link in the chat. Okay, I think we will just continue.
I don't know, we click, but I don't know where we are.
ممكن اللينك اللي انا بعته لو سمحت اضغطوا عليه عشان تجوين البريكنج جروب.
If you already joined the meeting, you can leave the event. I would kindly kindly ask you all to mute your mics, please, or open it just in one event or meeting, not in the two. Thank you so much.
Mona, can you?
Hello, can you hear me? Are we in one of the breakout rooms?
No, it seems as if we're all in one room. Mona, can you make separate breakout rooms?
The breakouts, just
Guys, if there is a technical issue, can we all have one group and only have a discussion? Try to run it in one group. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's easier.
Yeah, because we're losing the time.
Yeah.
Fully agree. Fully agree.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, shall we go back to the main session? There are only 40 participants there. Yeah.
We just have 30 participants.
13 here, 14 in the other. Okay. Maybe if we split the group, we are now in 2 sessions, right? If I leave this one and Petra and Amga moderate the discussion in this one, and I leave together with Domi too, and we moderate the discussion in the other one. Is that okay?
Yes, but I'm not sure if we can rejoin again.
I propose a plenary. Let's do a plenary.
I don't know where we are.
Can,
Okay, Mona, can you bring us back to the main session?
I think that's much easier. Bring everyone back to the main session.
Yes, very good suggestion. Thank
Yeah.
you.
منى سمعانا؟
ايوه انا سامعكم. انا
لو سمحت انقل كل الناس تاني على المين سيشن.
اوكي.
شكرا.
Okay, so we are now back here.
I think Muhammad is moving the participant back to the main session.
Okay.
Okay, we working on.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe Chris, you can start display the result, and maybe we can start the discussion here until the other joining us. Yeah, and then you can run it from your end. Yeah.
So. Session.
Hello, everybody. There was just a problem with my PC. We're having a technical issue and we're working on solving it.
Mona, I suggest we stay just in this one room now.
Yes.
Because I'm afraid the second time it might not be working. So please try to get everybody in this main meeting environment again.
Okay.
I think we now have 38 participants, and we were having around 60 to 70 participants. So maybe you can just move them back to this session.
And maybe good if Chris has rights for sharing the screen so that we can share the results.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just trying to see the session, to enter the session, and we're going to invite them to join the event again.
Okay. Mohammed, can you make sure that I can share my screen again? Then I can show the results of the scoring by the participants. Okay, thank you. So welcome to this to this very large breakout group. In this sheet, I like to show you the scores of all the participants, which is, I think, already very interesting. So we have 3 scores. The first one, the ideal policy strategy, that you can see is basically scoring high on all 7 indicators. But then in the second and third spider, you see that the horizontal and vertical expansion strategy, they are not so ideal as what we might have hoped for, with especially the horizontal expansion strategy scoring lower on land productivity and on environmental sustainability, so suggesting that we are going to produce less yield per hectare, and also at the expense of the environment. Whereas, for instance, for the vertical expansion strategy, you see it is scoring fairly high on both biophysical water productivity and land productivity, according to the participants, which is interesting. I would like to open up the floor for discussion, and I'm curious to hear what you think, to what extent these different development strategies, the horizontal and the vertical expansion strategy, are meeting Egypt's policy targets. And just to remind you of some of the policy targets that we encountered in the review were to maximize benefits derived from water, to rationalize water use, near self-sufficiency, promoting low water consuming crops, promoting exports, and expansion of the agricultural area and production. So in the WebEx meeting, if you please raise your hand, then we can also get you into the discussion. So now I have to I need to stop sharing my screen. So just, or is somebody from the other moderators, can you moderate the discussion in the WebEx environment? Because I can't see the participants now.
Yes, I can see the.
So then if it's okay, Amgad, I stay here and sharing sheets of the presentation, and if you and the others can moderate the discussion in WebEx, I think that is the easiest way forward.
Yeah. So please, if you would like to give your comment, just raise your hand and I will unmute you. It's not working, Chris. Mona, can you give us a permission to unmute the speaker or people to give a comment? Mona or Muhammad?
You have now, Dr. Amgad?
Yes. Can you give us permission to unmute people? For participants, if you would like to give your comments on the analysis, would you please raise your hand or just click yes on the chat and we'll start to unmute you to talk.
دكتور أيمن جد لو احنا عملنا unmute للكل هيبقى كل واحد عنده صوت هيطلع.
تمام.
Can we choose from raise hand?
Okay, so
The attendee who wants to participate can raise his hand and you can unmute him or
yes.
her.
Yeah. So for the participant, if you would like to contribute to the discussion, please raise your hand.
You can see icon, feedback icon above the chat. So he can choose yes or no or a plus. So he can raise your hand.
Dear participants, could you please share your feedback if you like to share your opinion on the analysis just presented?
Yes, Chris. Can I invite Gabir Abdulatif to give his comments? Unmute yourself. Abdulatif.
Okay, he can talk now.
You can speak now. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
This is Gabir. I am an environmental engineer and I'm a master student of development economics and international cooperation. My main focus is on water policy and economics. I want to thank you for organizing this event and for the presentation, of course. My question is about the ideal policy. From what I see, everybody agrees that the ideal policy would be a mix between the horizontal and the vertical expansion policies. So how this mixture would be I mean, to what extent to reduce the horizontal expansion and to what extent to reduce vertical expansion? Thank you.
So I think this question for Petra.
Yes, thank you very much, Gaba, for this interesting question. Indeed, I think indeed it will be a mixture of both horizontal and vertical expansion. It's not that we have to choose between the both, but it is important to realize indeed also maybe more on a local basis, a regional basis, what that implies, what that will contribute to the different policy objectives of that particular region. But in reality, I agree, it will be a mixture of both policies. But it's interesting, I think, on the basis of the framework, to see the trade-offs between both. If you would choose for one, that you give up something in terms of one indicator for the benefit of another indicator. But in case of a mix, yeah, you can have the benefits of both. Indeed. Thank you, Gabe, for that question.
Thanks, Petra. And I would like to invite Dr. Pasquale Strido to give his comment. You can unmute yourself, Pasquale. Mohammed, can you unmute?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
I can't hear you. Can you, Pasquale, Petra? Okay, you run it from your end.
Yeah.
Pasquale, can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, I moved into, but now is.
We can hear you now, Pasquale. You can give your contribution.
I'm not clear what I'm supposed to do. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you, and I found you raising your hand.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So, no, very briefly, I wanted to intervene by one highlighting that there is definitely a strong trade-off between the horizontal and the vertical. Particularly in terms of water consumption, additional water consumption that you need when you go mostly on horizontal expansion. And there, the water we know that is mostly taken from fossil groundwater. So the majority of the water for the expansion will derive from unrenewable resources. So this is something that poses another challenge. So the strategy is much more complex that just looking if it respond, definitely respond, but how much sustainability it is might arise additional question. So if they are, because there was this question, are they good strategy? Probably they are, but the vertical is definitely one to give priority maybe, and then the horizontal to be done with very, let's say, very slow pace in order to maintain the consumption rate within a longevity, let's say, of this groundwater the longest possible. So, and then a second comment is about the indicators. What I didn't understand, if we ask to the people, what is their perception or what their judgment, that's different from what we measure. But we have seen that you have also the indicator on the consumption that you should add. So alone, this one, we needed to distinguish indicators that are quantitative and more objectively measurable from indicators that are what we judge subjectively. So this is just my comment, my contribution. Thank you.
Shall I respond to it?
Yes, please, Peter.
Well, thank you very much, Pasquale. Indeed, I fully agree with you that the horizontal requires extra water. And that's expressed in the environmental sustainability indicator, where we see indeed a lower score for the horizontal than for the vertical expansion, because there might be unsustainable use of groundwater. Thanks for that. And I also agree that it's not just about perceptions. That if you can quantify things, we definitely should. And in that sense, there are a number of indicators which we can, of course, also with this WaPA database, which we can quantify. And but nevertheless, it's still important. It's still not so easy to compare these different indicators, because they have different units. And of course, eventually, it becomes rather subjective because eventually it's a political decision, how to weigh the different indicators. And even in this spider diagram, we give scores, but we don't give any weighing to the different indicators because that's political in nature. And I think we as scientists, we don't weigh the different indicators. We just try to score them. And well, we should try to score them as much in a quantitative manner as possible. Yes. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Pasquale?
Thanks, Peter. Any other participant would like to give a comment or question or contribute to the discussion? Yeah, Mela, I can see Mela putting a question in the chat. So can I invite you, Mela, please? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Yes, my question is why carbon sequestration is not taken along as part of ecological sustainability. In Egypt, there's a company called Sekem that is working on carbon sequestration in the soil. That is a benefit, a positive part of economic sustainability. And it contributes to climate mitigation. So from that perspective, it has policy relevance. And it can be turned into economic goods if you can trade the carbon credits.
Thanks, Mela. I think that question goes to you as well, Peter.
Thank you, Mela. That's a very good point. We haven't included it yet, but I think it's worth to include it in the environmental indicator as maybe also in the economic return. And that's the thing. We only have 7 indicators, but you could expand, I think, the framework even further if that's a serious indicator to be considered. We haven't done that yet, so it's a very good point you raised, Mela. Thanks for that. Yeah,
Sekem, it's one of the successful organic farm in Egypt, and it's a large farm. And it's very successful. Yeah. Any other participant would like to give comments or having a question? Yep, I can see Zaid or Nisa. Can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
So my question was very simple. Like in both strategies, are you also considering the crop diversity? Because each crop could have different water productivity and it might affect the other indicators too.
So, Petra, you want to take that question? Yeah, the question is really about the crop diversity and how it might affect the performance under both strategies.
I think there is a clear difference. In the horizontal expansion, see often more high-value crops, whereas in the vertical, you have more the staples. In terms of water consumption, you might see differences between the two. I don't know. In terms of food self-sufficiency, I think the staples contribute more.
So how do you treat crop diversity under both strategy?
I don't know. Maybe Maria and Chris could add to that one.
Yeah, I think I can briefly add. I think what we now did was we said that in the horizontal expansion strategy, this is mainly for the commercial crops, high value crops for the export. So that's what we basically now assumed, and what you see is happening mostly. And we said under vertical expansion, we look more at the rehabilitation of the old lands that we say the production has to improve. But we assume it is mostly the staple crops, wheat, etc. That is where the production is increasing. So that's how detailed we looked at different crops.
So different strategy can promote different crop diversity.
Yeah, but I see in the chat already the very good question of Isam Noval, I think.
Yes.
Which is a great question, asking why only looking at export in the horizontal and domestic in the vertical. Isam Noval, maybe you can a little bit give more feedback on your question, because I think it's a very good point that you are making here.
You can unmute yourself, Hassan. Still, we can't hear you, Dr. Hassan.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Hi, Dr. Amgad.
كيفك? Yeah.
Yeah. My question: why in such strategies you put for exporting in the horizontal expansion of agriculture? Why, while for the domestic, it's just for the local market? For the domestic is in horizontal, is in the vertical. And what's the justification or the reason behind such strategies? That's my point, Hani. I didn't see that there is a big contradiction between local domestic market and the international market or for export. So we can just shift from growing one crop to another crop, which is a high value crop for exporting, for example.
So this, Chris, you want to handle that?
Yeah, I can give it a shot. And Maria, you may need to give some backup or more information when I am. Because if I'm correct, we did the policy review, and by going through the policy documents and of course sharing this with different experts in Egypt, we got the impression that a lot of the agricultural production in the old lands is mostly staple. So it is farmers who grow wheat and other cereals, mostly for the domestic market. And then I think what Dr. Noval is asking for is, can you also produce easily high value crops in these areas? And well, I think then the question is, can farmers easily switch to these high value crops? Do they have the capacities and the abilities to do so? Or are they very much trapped and constrained in the systems they are now working in? But I do agree, it is a very interesting resolution strategy that you say within the old lands, we need to shift production to more high value crops and to export markets. But it goes, of course, with against the other policy objectives for food self-sufficiency. And then the question is that the desired direction to go or not? So, but it's a very important point. And Maria, please correct me if I said something wrong about the research that we did.
No, indeed, that was the case. That was the impression that we got, and also the fact that horizontal expansion is also more for it requires more inputs, more investments, and thus it's also it might be difficult to produce less crops there. And also through some literature that we saw that indeed horizontal expansion is something that is done for exports, but indeed there might be areas that horizontal expansion is not for exports. And I also agree that simply it would be good to switch the crops that are cultivated in already existing lands and produce more value out of them. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. Grace. I think there is another great question also from David Gronfield, who links actually the crop practice and the indicators. David, could you please make your contribution? Unmute yourself, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it seems to me the 7 indicators are really objectives. You can argue about whether food self-sufficiency is a good objective or not, but all of them are really proposed as they're not just indicators. They're indicators because people think these are things to strive for, and the question then becomes, how do you meet all those objectives? Where you can debate the objectives and then settle on maybe 5 objectives and ask the question how to meet all the objectives at the same time. That to me is much more interesting than, of course, we need to protect the ecosystem, and you have to create jobs, and you need to provide food for the population. So I think it's useful. The indicators are useful for monitoring where we are towards meeting them. But I don't see that it's an appropriate question to ask, is a horizontal strategy or a vertical strategy more conducive to those particular indicators? It's much more nuanced than that. And I think it's much more useful to ask the bigger questions, which don't seem to be asked about. What about agroecology, which FAO supports as a program, as a principle, but you don't really see it happening on the ground? So that's where I'd like to focus the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Who would like to take that? Dumiti, or you want to give a comment, Dumiti?
Hello. Thank you. I think it's a very valid point. And yes, it's difficult to decide on the indicators. One reflection is, if we think of the sustainability dimension and the indicators, for example, like the indicator 2.4.1 that aim to reach sustainable agriculture, we could consider that some of the indicators that are proposed for this policy analysis, and as you said, David, very rightly, probably it's what people will strive for, and we should aim at saying, I mean, how can we find a balance that will just, where we find then the sufficient, the satisfactory result where all these different objectives are met. And if we want to quantify and just maybe answer to your question related to the agroecologic dimension, should have at least one measurement of what is the status for agriculture and just monitor how it change and evolve. And that's where I think probably getting the indicator 2.4.1, that is an indicator that was approved as part of the set of indicators for the monitoring of the SDGs, the 2030 agenda, that will set a little bit the situation, and just according to what the priorities that can evolve, and also the quantified objective that can evolve, to then see how the country just evolved and the progress on according to what was set as an objective starting point, and then what the policy set as an objective. So I don't know if it's, but I see is I agree that there should be a monitoring element introduced to be able to judge if we are moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Domiti, and I can see the raised hand also from Abib Shukala. So Abib, could you please unmute yourself? Abib Shukala.
Can we take 2 more early questions and send the rest of the questions on the question and answer box to be answered later? Because it's 16:22.
Okay.
We'll have in 10 minutes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So last opportunity for a question. So please, if you have a question, there's your last chance. Raise
Hello.
your hand.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yes, we can, please.
Okay, so thank you very much for the successful workshop. My question is there a possibility to know the current status of those indicators, particularly with respect to the land and water productivity? My question is, if there is still a room to improve water productivity with synergies, or without any trade-off to other indicators, example, land productivity. I'm Abebe from UNESCO HA.
Thank you. Who would like to take that? Chris or Petra?
Yeah, I can answer maybe Abebe's question. I think it's a good one. Abebe, you are asking us, do we have sufficient data for each indicator? And I must admit that is now a big limitation of the work we have been doing so far. We tried to come up with with good assessments for each indicator, but was still largely based on our own judgment, based on what we have been reading in policy documents, scientific publications, etc. So I would say if we have more quantitative data on our fingertips for land productivity, for water productivity, for economy, for environment, yes, then we can improve the assessment and and maybe can also better identify what sort of strategies can resolve current limitations in for instance water productivity. So that's it's a very good question. Thanks for raising it, and I think we need to do a bit of extra data digging there. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. And taking care of the time, I think we need to move. So if there is no further comments or question, I would like to invite Petra to give a closing remark and next step.
Well, thank you very much, Amkat. First of all, it's very much appreciated that you stayed with us, given the technical problems we encountered. I was quite happy to see the scoring, that the interactive part, and it's nice to see this clear trade-off which is presented. And I think we got very nice feedback as well. I try to quantify as much as possible. Consider to incorporate more indicators on top of the 7 ones. Also, this mixture of policy that you don't have to choose between horizontal or vertical. It can be a combination of both, which is. I think we have done this to see that there is a difference. If you have different development strategies, that they contribute differently to the different policy objectives. But of course, eventually it remains political in nature, because what the government finds important policy objectives might also change over time. Suddenly, food self-sufficiency might suddenly become more important, especially under a pandemic we're currently in. So in that sense, the weighing of the different indicators is very political in nature. And yeah, I'm quite happy, I think, with the input we received, and we will prepare a session report, and we would like to receive your input into this report. So please get in touch with us. We will leave our email address. Maybe Chris can type it into the chat. We prepared it on the PowerPoint, but I don't see it at the moment. And yes, please share your input with us, and we will incorporate it in the session report as well as in the policy brief as much as possible. We're very much open for feedback on the assessment framework we have developed. And yeah, hopefully it's useful also in the broader MENA context. And yeah, I would like to give maybe the word also to Domitil for some final words, or to Amgat, if you like.
Thanks. Thanks, Petra. That was really successful, taking all the technical challenge, but it was really great. And I can see the value of the 7 indicators to look at the expansion or the agriculture strategy as a vertical or horizontal in Egypt. And I can see the opportunity how we can actually improve that with getting access to more data and liaison together as well. So some work we've been doing, which is we are content analysis. Briefly, we talked about it, where we look at those water productivity values and performance in the delta with raw data or field data. So I think that will be a nice match to bring into the analysis, and that could be a nice area to add to the analysis as well. Overall, it was really successful, and I see the value of those indicators, and I think it will add value to bring into more data. So thanks for your contribution and analysis you shared with us, and looking forward to the next step and the session outcome as a report. Thank you.
As a very sorry.
Hello, should I add something?
Yes,
or you? Yes. So to add to what Amgat said, so I also just confirm the interest to just use this set of indicators to reflect on trade-off, and as was highlighted by some participants, the importance to see, I mean, can we think of what are the maximum, what can be achieved, and what are the implications of one optimization versus another one. It's raised the importance of building a knowledge base, as was highlighted on the indicators, to really inform the decisions when we have reflected on the use of the indicators. And I see an interesting element that could be added in the framework is to use as a baseline the indicator, the SDG indicator 2.4.1 to just set the situation of agriculture, sustainable agriculture at field level. But I just wanted to raise again the importance in addition to that, and because I highlighted at the beginning the importance to just think of the risk of generating a rebound effect, as we had seen. If we go for a horizontal or vertical strategy, in any case, you have a moment where you have a limit to the water resources you could use. So having this water accounting element added, and just assessing what is the situation, resources and uses in a systematic way would be a complementary element that is needed. And I wanted to indicate, I referred to this project already, but we are in the NENA region, we are working at the moment on establishing standard water accounting framework as an instrument towards the sustainable water resources management. And Egypt is championing this in this regard, having created already a water accounting unit. So I think it would be a very good exercise and interest for the water accounting unit of the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, maybe to consider this and just see what are the implications of these different strategies. And finally, I wanted to refer again on the water scarcity initiative that will use such results to streamline water and food security through dialogue and cooperation. And I think such elements and project could be very interesting to just fit in the water allocation guidelines that are in preparation. Thank you.
Thank you, Domitil. Amgad, I'd like to point participants, I want to say two things. First, I want to thank all the presenters and participants in the session for their participation. And I hope that it has been an informative session where they learned about, let's say, a broader approach to look at water productivity. That's the first thing. And the second thing, I like to join attention to the polling that we just started. So you see on the right side of your screen, there is a poll with questions. I think there are 5 questions that should take you a few minutes, and we would highly appreciate if you can share your feedback there. It will help us to further develop the method. And the questions, they might also be sent to you through email again, but if you have time now, that would be great. So thanks a lot.
Can we still share our email addresses so that people can give additional feedback?
I think I did it in the chat.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
Not. Maria and my email address.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks. Amgad, you do the official closure. Some nice Arabic words wishing everybody a healthy Cairo Water Week and something else I don't understand.
Thank you, Chris, for putting me in the spot. Okay. So first of all, thanks for everyone in English, and then I will revert to Arabic. شكرا لحضراتكم على تواجدكم معنا ومشاركتكم، وإن شاء الله هيبقى في ريبورت هيطلع من السيشن وهيبقى شيرد مع حضراتكم، وشكرا على وقتكم، ونتمنى لقائكم مرة أخرى في مجموعة سيشن كل يوم إن شاء الله، فكلكم invited معنا. شكرا. Back to you, Chris.
Shukran. Thank you, Amgad, and thanks everybody. I wish you a good Cairo Water Week with many more interesting sessions, and like to call it a day here, and wish everybody a nice evening. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.